And we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another A Million or the Moon live stream. We have a very special guest with us today. We have Tanto from the project or product Maximus, who's here to tell us all about what this thing is about. So how you doing, man?
Good. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
that's
for having me
awesome.
on.
No, thanks for coming on, man. So before we start off here, and we delve into what Maximus is all about, just for the sake of our audience, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and how'd you get into crypto.
Yeah, so I got into crypto when I was working on an old startup that I had launched. It was a virtual reality camera, and we were trying and like a VR photo sharing app, and so we were trying to figure out how to let people make money sharing on our app, and so we got funding from this old ICO that launched, and so we were trying to build this crypto into this VR startup that I was working on in like 2016, and so that's what kind of got me in the game, was kind of riding through that like ICO boom where all this like crazy crypto stuff was going on. That was like the first time anyone had ever heard of crypto, even though it had been around for a while. That was the first time it kind of like broke through. And so that's kind of what got me into it. And then, one of the first people that I was really learning from early in my, crypto journey was Richard Hart. And so, I was just kind of, tagging along to some, kind of that part of crypto. And so that, that's what got me into Hex. And some of the first things that I'd heard about Hex was this concept, what was Richard talking about, why he included bigger pays better to incentivize like, larger, less frequent stakes. So that idea had always kind of resonated with me. And then, so kind of especially as gas prices have gotten so bad, that definitely kind of kicked it into high gear with wanting to try to, kind of build a solution. So, it's kind of all been kind of this like continuous journey of, getting into crypto from some old projects I was in, and then kind of sticking with, kind of like the Richard Hart ecosystem. And then, now I'm trying to do my part and build on top of that. So,
Right on,
yeah,
man. Right
man.
on. Okay, so then what is that exactly? Is Maximus, and what's your role within Maximus?
Yeah, so I'm the developer behind Maximus. So what I'm building is the smart contract, and like the front end app that you'll log into to use it. And what Maximus is, it's a contract that enables people to join a very large max length stake. So rather than staking on your own as an individual, you can just put your hex into this pool, and then that pool is staked all at once for a max length stake. And then the token that our contract gives you for for minting your for contributing your hex, that can be redeemed at the end of the stake for all the hex and all the hedgerin that it earned at that time. So by holding Maximus, you have you're gaining exposure to a max length hex stake and the hedgerin that gets emitted as part of that. And so Maximus is just it's fully backed by the underlying hex stake, and it's fully trustless. There's no admin keys, no pre-mine, no fee, like no contract fees or anything. So like you put one hex in, you get one maxi, and then at the end, whatever amount of hex you have and the hedgerin that's in the contract, that's divided equally amongst all the maxi holders. And so, yeah.
Super interesting. So what is the benefit of going through the Maximus route rather than doing a stake yourself?
So, there's a lot of benefits. Kind of depends who you are. If you're a smaller staker, the gas fees really eat you up. Like you could be, like maybe on the dashboard, it'll look like you're getting 30% APY. But if you have a really small stake, if you factor in the gas cost to start and end the stake, your APY is down at maybe 10% because, so much of it was just eaten up by that gas fee. And because the gas fee to end your stake, it doesn't matter how many hex you have. All that matters is the length of the stake. So every day that your stake is longer, it costs a little bit more in gas to end. And so although you're earning, you earn a little bit more every day, and it costs more. The gas cost can fluctuate, just depending on what's going on the blockchain at that time. And so still, like the max length stake is the most expensive stake to end. And it's also one of the most popular stakes to make. So there's a lot of people doing it on their own. And so all those people are paying, what could be up to one ETH of gas at the end of their stake. that's all money that could have been held in hex. And so, like just the gas fees of everybody paying for ending their stakes on their own, especially the long-term stakes, that just really sucks a lot of money out of the Hexican economy, because people, rather than holding hex, they have to now hold ETH to then pay for gas to an Ethereum miner or an Ethereum validator. And those people probably aren't in hex, so they don't care. And so, the saving on gas fees is, it's good for just the individual to, save money, but also just as a whole, it's good for us to maintain more of that money, as opposed to just paying, everyone paying for effectively the same thing. It's like the thing that costs a lot is just calculating the interest. And so calculating everyone's interest when it's like almost identical, it kind of just doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so, doing it this way, it definitely saves, it saves a lot of money inside Hex.
Absolutely, especially for like the new person, retail first getting in, a couple $100 here and there, that's significant. That's for a lot of people, large portions of what they're putting in. So to be able to pool your funds and get access to what may end up being, and you let me know here, one of the largest hex stakes ever, is that correct? Or 15-year long?
So we haven't launched it yet. So it's launching. We're launching the launch date in the next day or two. We're just completing the audit and going through the process. We've got 2 audits on it, and so we're just kind of just like crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's there. And so we're going to be launching the launch date soon. So we don't know how much hex is going to be in the pool. Right. I think the largest one was something like 900 million hex or something in a single max length stake. Right. And so that's the largest one ever. I tweeted that, are we going to reach this level? Who knows? Like it's purely on who chooses to mint. You have to have liquid hex to mint. So, it's no airdrop. It's all 100% of the maxi supply is created through the mint, like the minting, where you put in 1 hex and you get 1 maxi. And so, we don't know how much is going to come in, but it could be up there.
Right. It's certainly, I think, reasonable to assume this will be among one of the largest 15 long hex stakes ever. I mean, I'm definitely personally certainly considering participating myself. I mean, what am I saying? No, I'm going to get it. But for the people, let's ask some more questions here. What's the state of the audit?
So we got 1 audit with a firm called Solidity Finance. And then in that one, they returned no critical vulnerabilities. They just had a couple of like recommendations for just general best practices. So nothing critical, just, they're just saying how we could, save our users on gas by, calling the function a different way. So little things like that. And then, so once we resolved those things, we actually got a second audit from a different firm. And then the only feedback they had is they had a recommendation for just how to add an additional layer of security to the minting and redemption phase. So it was, unlikely to ever, like it couldn't have necessarily been exploited, but just like adding this extra layer of protection is just like, that's how you can like be certain that that like a whole class of issue couldn't arise, even though we were pretty certain it wouldn't. And so they just had a, good piece of feedback there. And so, so they're now just updating those audit reports, and then from there, the code as is. Once I submit to this second auditor the update, that should be the code that gets launched. And so from there, we'll be ready to go. And so we'll have 2 independent security audits, and we've completed a successful test on the PulseChain testnet, where people were able to join. It was like a 7-day mint phase and a 3-day stake. And during that phase, we were able to successfully test like the minting, the staking, the minting of the hedron, because we're as the hedron serves each, or as the stake serves each additional day, it can mint some hedron. So, we tested the whole hedron integration. And then we tested the redemption, where at the end you burn your maxi and then you get back hex plus hedron. And so everything worked like on, with our front end DApp and the contract. And then now we're just including some of these like security tips and tricks that the auditors are giving us. So that's just about it. There's nothing too big. So we're just about ready to go.
That's awesome, man. Are those audits public yet?
One of them is, you'll see the link in the Telegram. They're still updating it, but then yeah, they'll be fully public.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now, something else I like to ask, especially developers, who with all these different projects and products out there, I always find it very interesting to find out exactly what kind of maybe unexpected problems or challenges or things that happen that maybe were difficult that you didn't expect to be difficult during the development process. So, was there anything maybe unexpectedly difficult or surprising or interesting during the development phase of Maximus that you didn't maybe originally anticipate?
I would say part of it was just like the learning curve
Mm,
of learning Solidity and learning the developer tools for that. Because most of my professionally, like for work, I'm a web developer, so I build web apps, and usually I write most of my products in Python
mm,
using a tool called Anvil, where it's just like everything just like works. It's like it's just like this awesome developer experience. And then just like learning new tools, that's always like you know that's a lot of that early time you spent kind of learning new tools. And then I would say that like the earlier attempts at this concept that I had attempted, um, like where it included like it was like a perpetual 30-day mint, or there are all these things that like I I couldn't really even like reason about how I could like do it, because I was kind of just, so I just, everything I just wanted to like boil down to like the simplest thing possible.
mm,
And so that actually alleviated a lot of issues where like I really wasn't having to solve any like big like technical things or like any big like crypto contract breakthroughs. Like it's really like I'm more just kind of like organizing a process. And so just by simplifying, I think I actually alleviated a whole bunch of just like a whole class of challenges. And then I would say just there have been some kind of funny little things that pop up, like the like the way that the contract was calculating how many hedgerin per hex, because hedgerin has 9 decimals and hex has 8 decimals. Like
mm.
I was sitting there, I was confused. That was kind of just to like
Yeah,
make
you have
sure
to call
that
up your math teacher.
you know
Hey.
yeah, and then also just making sure that like with rounding, because in Solidity there's no decimal points, like
Mm,
it's all integers, and so how you treat the last decimal. And so there were some weird little like tricks that I had to use for that. But other than that, it was actually fairly simple to kind of get rolling.
interesting.
And yeah, it's been a
So,
couple months in the work.
so that's what I was about to ask you. It sounds like there's been maybe a little bit of like an evolution with Maximus. How long have you been thinking about this concept?
I mean, early on, like I had actually, there's a, if you know Crypto Coffee's YouTube channel, over a year ago, it was in like December of 2020. Him and I are on a live stream, and we talk about like this concept of, you know, pooling, pooling a stake and then issuing a token that's backed by the stake.
Mm,
More around less about the concept of gas savings, because that at that time gas wasn't too bad. It was
right.
more around just having liquid access to your staked hex. And so we had talked about that, and so that idea has always kind of been kicking around. And then like by now, I was just kind of surprised that I'd never seen something that was kind of doing it. There were some projects in the past that kind of did that, but like it wasn't as common as I kind of expected it to be by then. And then like when I started learning about DAOs, I figured that could actually be a really good way to implement like a group stake.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so the early versions of this concept, how I was trying to build it was actually through a traditional like DAO structure, where I was using a tool called Aragon DAO, which you can you can mint tokens that represent ownership in it. People can deposit funds. You can run smart contracts on behalf of the DAO. You can vote on strategy. So that was like what I was originally trying to do. But there were just a lot of challenges with that, that would have, like, just because it like a lot of these DAOs are actually like very trustful, like where you actually have to rely on the people who are operating them to actually perform what they said they were, or else it could all like come to a crashing, dumpster fire. And so with that was the challenge with the with like doing it through that, is that there would have one, like, the whole Aragon DAO that's a big sprawling platform that, like, I really, who knows what could go wrong with that. It's not like it's like a very big, or like, it hasn't necessarily been tested very thoroughly with like big money applications. And so, I was always kind of nervous about using it. And then it definitely relied on a high degree of trust, where people would have had to trust me to make sure the minting, worked as planned, and they'd have to trust me to make sure the redemptions worked. And so there are all these kind of like things that would have, I don't think, aligned with the audience, since it's like a hex based product where we're trying to carry forward, and when you're holding Maxi, you're really just holding hex. And so because of that, we wanted to really have alignment with a lot of the principles that people, that people really love about hex, like where it's, trustless, like, unstoppable, no admin keys, it just works, immutable, never going to change. So like we wanted to carry forth those principles into Maxi, and so doing it through a traditional like DAO structure, that would have been just really difficult. So then I kind of, stopped trying to fit it into like a DAO framework, and then just started wanting to do it through like just like a direct smart contract, because I looked at, other smart contracts that were kind of similar, where, you pool funds and then people can redeem, and it wasn't that difficult at all. And that's, and then once we just like really like consolidated it down to like the, kind of like the basic, like it's like, the base, like the most basic thing that could be massively valuable for the end user, which would be, just doing a single max length stake. So, there's a lot of other ideas around like, repeat stakes or ongoing stuff. And, those have a lot of challenges that were just kind of hard to solve in the time frame, because we want to roll this out, one, for the Hedron bonuses before they're done, and then two, before PulseChain. And so, we really just wanted to get, this first version out. And so we really just cut back on a lot of stuff. And so then what it ended up being is just a simple smart contract that it's like 130 lines of code, and it's like actually very readable. And that was, another benefit is that, just to add trust in the contract is it's something that just even an average user who's not a programmer, you could read through that and actually make a lot of sense of it. It's like very clear. There's nothing too confusing about it. And so overall, we really just wanted to, like a benefit of making it simple is that it just allows us to, make it so that it's like fully trustless, and make it so that people can audit it, even though we're getting audits, like people can audit it themselves. And so that was like a big design criteria that we were trying to hit with this.
Awesome. No, okay. So you touched on a couple things very important there, but one thing as well. So for the people concerned about pooling funds, maybe you could further clarify. Although I think you touched on it. It maybe alleviate some of those concerns of people. People the concerns to have with pooling funds. Are there any admin keys? Is there anything immutable? Can you go and send? Are you going to send the hex to? Not that it's listed on FTX, but are you going to send funds to FTX?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. So like the difference between pooling through a smart contract like Maximus and pooling through some of the like we've seen throughout some of these like sacrifices, and even in the past people have done kind of informal pools, where it's like semi, where it's like it's all driven by social trust, and like you're really relying on the person, on your buddy over there to make sure it works. And I don't think I've heard of any problems from the social, like kind of like people, like friends organizing pools. Like I haven't heard of anything. Maybe there have been problems, but like that still like it's just if you don't have to do that. Like for some things it makes sense because there's no way around it. Like with the PulseChain sacrifices, how people were doing pools for that, there was really no way to build that into a smart contract because you don't know how the PulseChain side is going to be. So you can't really build that. So you kind of would, if you were to do pooling, you'd have to do it that way. But because our like the whole premise of Maximus is based on staking hex, and because hex is fully trustless, and it's like an extensible smart contract where we can build on top of it. Like where, you don't have to be a person clicking around on MetaMask to interact with hex. You can be a smart contract that's interacting with hex. And so because hex was so well built, that enables us to use it in a trustless way. And so because we have the opportunity to use it in a trustless way, you certainly should. Like, you should only introduce trust when you have some other thing that's going to fail because some other reason. Like, you only should introduce trust if you really have to. And even if you trust the person, a lot of people definitely trust me as a person, but like, I don't want them to have to trust in anyone,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
that's just like the preferable default. And so so with Maximus pooling, nobody owns the contract. Nobody has the private keys to that address. They don't even exist. It's a smart contract, and the way that it's coded, there's no like organizer fee. That's the main problem people have with pools, I think, is just like someone's taking a cut. No one's taking a cut here. You get one maxi in, you get one maxi out, or one hex in, one maxi out, and so so there's no one's making money on this pool, and the pooling is it's enforced through the smart contract, which is now audited and also simple enough for you to audit yourself, and it so people don't need to like trust it. And so there's no problem with joining this type of pool, because it doesn't rely on any person to operate it. Like, the contract allows for everyone to operate it together. And so a lot of those risks are just non issues with this type of pooling.
Right. Awesome. Okay. So let's say you are a viewer of this live stream. You realize the value of participating in a max length, hex stake, pooled, and you want to ape in. When is the mint phase?
So the mint phase is probably going to start in a couple days. I can't give a solid target yet because we're just finalizing this, the contract with the audit. So it will be in a couple days, and it's going to last about 14 days. And so, and then even if you miss that out, and even if you do mint, that's really just the beginning. Like, it really kicks off. Like, what really matters is what happens in the maxi hex market after the stake starts. Like, that's where like the real games begin. The minting, that's just like to set the initial supply of maxi and to build up the stake, like the underlying stake. But then after that, that's probably where the people that have the highest performance in maxi will probably be a result of the people that are watching that hex maxi market, because the coin is fully liquid at the time of launch. And the maxi is fully redeemable for the underlying stake at the end. During all that time, the market is just going to be speculating on what that future value is going to be. And so what that does, it creates the opportunity for one, if there's like a big, like if like a lot of maxi people are selling, maybe they need cash, maybe they think it's going lower, maybe they just want to get out of hex, they're selling down, that can create a discount for a buyer. So even if you don't have liquid hex today, you could just, wait a little bit and, wait for a big wave of maxi sellers and then buy it potentially a discount, later on. And so you don't necessarily, while like you can guarantee that you'll get the like 1-to-1 rate if in the minting, even if you miss it, that window, it's okay, because buying it from the market, that's also just as good as minting. That's still a very positive act for the ecosystem, and it can be a good strategy for the user too. Just like buying discounts, because sometimes there may be no maxi for sale, and then maybe there's like a high premium. And so if you have maxi that you bought at a discount, and then maybe 6 months later, now maxi's trading at a premium, maybe you can break off some of your maxi and then sell into that premium. And then that's kind of like gives if you staked for 6 months, right? It's like you got a little, like, you got more maxi, which means you got more hex. And then if you wanted to just sell that, you could. And then it's like, oh, you just staked, but all you paid were, a swap fee. And so, that's it. Even if you miss, the minting window, that's really, there's 15 years of this. And so, it's going to be exciting. So, just getting in whenever you can is really welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so many interesting parts to this. Now, Okay, so let's say you have the maxi token. You wait the 15 years. You redeem your initial plus the interest plus your Hadron. Is the maxi token only designed to exist for 15 years? Will there be another raise? Like, what happens after 15 years and everyone redeems their hex and their Hadron?
So the maxi token, like so this pool, like the maxi token for this pool, that will, it'll last forever. After the stake ends, it's redeemable. So like over time, the the people will burn their maxi and then pull out their hex. But hold on one second.
No, all good, all good. I was on the verge of asking what dog you have, but it's all good. Take your time.
Oh yeah. This pool, this coin will last forever, until the last hex is redeemed, that like the coin will never, it'll always be there. But then as far as like future pools, so right now we're mainly just focused on like a successful execution of this first pool. We definitely have some, like kind of like this definitely is just the beginning of this concept of like, trustless stake pooling. And there's actually a lot of ways that we can take it. And so, we do have some, just because there's clearly so much that like literally 4 out of 5 people in the Telegram chat, their first question is, when's the next one? And so like, there's clearly a lot of demand for this. And so, we do have some things in the work and, kind of, definitely nothing certain. So, I don't want to like, project anything. And also you shouldn't expect me to do anything really, like, this all, like could happen, could not happen, who knows? But, we have some really cool ideas that could, where like the existence of future pools and just like, enabling people to be pooling like, stakes like this, in a way that can really amplify the, this maxi pool. Like all future things that kind of build on top of it could be kind of these like force multipliers for all the previous pools. And so that's why, we're really focused on this first one, because it'll be like the top earning per hex stake of it. If there were future pools, this one would earn the most per hex just because of how the share rate works and because of the Hedron bonus. And then 2, like some of these things we're kind of conjuring over here can be serious force multipliers for the earlier versions, where you can pretty much like roll your older stake tokens into the new stake pool and kind of like, push forward that way. And so there's stuff in, we're definitely kind of brainstorming and experimenting with some stuff, but as for now, we're certainly just focused on this first one, because this kind of is like what kicks off this whole thing.
Right, absolutely. And I was even thinking too, like there's some interesting game theory here, because like let's say, similar to kind of with PulseX and PulseChain, where PulseX raised kind of a lot more money, because I think there was more time for marketing, more time for advertising. Once people kind of understood the idea, they were more comfortable putting in more money. So I imagine maybe something similar could happen with this first attempt at pooling a max length stake, where once this is out and people all see that it worked and kind of there's more of an understanding, more marketing, maybe another attempt could even raise more. But then would that detract from the first one? But maybe the first one got in at a better share rate, got in at a better Hadron multiplier, got in before the PulseChain fork. So there's a lot of very interesting game theory there. But yeah, oh man, that's super interesting. So okay, so that's another thing too. Do you guys expect to be able to be fully minted before the fork and before PulseChain mainnet?
So we're trying to. That's what we're rushing to get done. But there's the chance. Who knows when that fork is going to be? But even like kind of no matter what happens, it'll still just work. Because the only difference that would be is that the number of PMAX, like the total supply of PMAXi, might be just slightly different than the total supply of eMaxi, because all the people that minted before the fork, their minting just gets copied over, but then all the people that mint after, it's like they now have their hex on Pulse and hex on ETH, and so now they have to decide, like because you'll be able to mint on both Ethereum, or you'll like Maxi works just as well on Ethereum as PulseChain. And so, now they have to take two separate steps to, mint the eMaxi or mint the PMaxi. And so they, there could be some variation in how much actually gets minted on either chain, just because, rather than minting one time and then that getting copied, that person now has to do two. So who knows, like if 100% of people use 100% of their copy, but.
Interesting. So could it be possible where maybe on the Ethereum side or maybe on the PulseChain side, Maxi might be more or less expensive given a change in the total supply? Because aren't you because you're going to pool the hex stake, you're doing it all at once, correct? So if there's a supply difference on the PulseChain to Ethereum side, might there also be potentially a premium on either PulseChain Maxi or Ethereum Maxi?
So it wouldn't necessarily be a premium. The number would not be one. It wouldn't be 1-to-1. Like if we launch everything fully before, like at least the supply is 1-to-1. So whatever the price is, that really is just showing the market measuring the difference in value of hex, because like the Maxi is fully backed by hex. And so like if the hex on ETH versus hex on Pulse price is like, say, like 1.2 to 1, then maybe the Maxi on either is like 1.2 to 1. It may have slight but like the supply doesn't like that's not really what drives the premium across the chain. What drives what would drive a premium across the chain maybe is if because people think that gas on ETH is going to be more expensive than gas on Pulse, maybe people might value the Maxi on ETH a little bit more because the value proposition of the gas savings may just feel more significant on ETH. And so people are willing maybe to pay a little bit more for the Maxi on ETH because it's saving them that much more on gas. And so maybe there's like going to be some, kind of like, I mean, that's going to be like a whole, that's mainly driven on like the underlying hex value, like the Maxi to eMaxi pairs. Yeah. And it's not necessarily driven by the total like unit supply. Having the whole thing complete by the fork makes it easier to interpret that like cross chain like value, because the supply starts at 1-to-1. If it doesn't, you'd have to like always in the back, say like ETH has like 10% more hex than the one on Pulse, then you kind of have, when you're thinking about that price, you have to like bake in that like 10% difference. So that just kind of makes it harder to just like quickly think about. So that's like a big reason why we want to just be all on Pulse. One, just so the users only have to mint once. And then two, just because it makes that mental calculation a little bit easier to make sense of when comparing the value of eMaxi to PMaxi.
Right. Oh, and how long is the mint phase?
It's going to be 14 days.
14 days. Okay, right on. Now, I also see another interesting question here from the commenters here. Can you talk about the treasury value versus market value?
Yeah. So when you start the stake, you start with the principal, and then once you stake, you get the T shares, and then when you have those T shares, and you know how many days you have left, you can kind of estimate how much you think you might earn. But it's very uncertain because there's 5,555 days where you have to predict and guess what that daily payout per T share is going to be, and so. But every day that goes by, how much you made that day. And so like over time, the treasury is now backed by the principal plus all the hex interest that it earned throughout that stake, plus the future earnings that no one knows, but people are kind of estimating and speculating on what that'll be. And so that treasury value is just like the value of the underlying asset. So the underlying hex stake. So that, and it's kind of, how up to, your own interpretation. Like, do you treat the treasury value as only the principal? Do you treat the treasury value as only the principal plus earned interest to date? Or do you treat the treasury value as, the principal earned to date plus some estimated value for the remainder? So like, you know,
Yeah.
what you choose as your treasury benchmark, you know, it's kind of your choice, like, you know, of how you want to interpret that. You know, I think it makes a lot of sense to treat it as the principal plus earned interest, and then, you know, not really considering the future, because then it's like you because, you know, people are factoring in the future earnings, but then they're discounting those future earnings to the present. And so maybe, you know, like, just, you know, you discount it to the present by not even thinking about them. So, like, you know, over time, it's like it grows steadily.
Right.
Because if you do it as like the end, it's just like, okay, at the start, maybe it's up there, and then it, you know, your curve has to move. But the treasury value is just like the underlying asset, and then the market value is just like what the price is on the exchange. And so, with, you know, the market value, that factors in things like, you know, are the big maxi sellers, do those guys have a car payment coming up, or you know, do people think that it's a premium and then they think they're going to buy back at a discount, you know, or, you know, are people factoring in, like, okay, there's like a Hedgerin AMR bonus, and we just got a bunch more Hedgerin, and so, you know, like the market's now factoring that in. And so there's you know, the market is just like whatever it is on that Uniswap pool or that PulseX pool. And so that can vary, why, you know, because that's based on everyone's individual actions. Whereas the treasury value is just something that kind of like it exposes itself as it goes, like, you know, and it is very stable. Like, you know, it's not that unpredictable. But the market value is very unpredictable. And
Right.
so, but over time, what we tried to emphasize in this chart is that, like, early on, there may be very large premiums and deficits that go on, because one, there's so much uncertainty of the future, you know, and then two, you know, they like there doesn't feel like there's necessarily that much cost to selling at a discount early on, because, like, you'd have to wait a long time to redeem, and so, like, you know, people kind of selling, you know, whenever. But then over time, as it gets closer and closer to the end date of that stake, what you see is that you know, what's reasonable to, you know, predict is that that premium and discount, like deviation from that green line, those just kind of squeeze as they approach the final redemption value. Because, you know, if you know, it doesn't make much sense to buy Maxi at a huge premium if in, you know, 10 days you could just redeem, you know, like you'd have less hex than what you're starting with, pretty much.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, you expect it to squeeze, but early on, when there's so much uncertainty, it could be wild swings in price.
And so I find this so interesting and so valuable on so many fronts, like especially at the end here, just to piggyback on the point you were making too, as kind of the true value of the treasury becomes more accurate later on, and makes sense that price would more closely reflect that. And as again, near the end, presumably there'd be much more attention being paid, as well as, you know, we get close to kind of the end stake. And man, I love this on multiple fronts, because number one, it gives people the opportunity to have exposure to a large max length stake, including Hadron, hopefully before the PulseChain fork as well. But it gives people the ability to be liquid, remain liquid, and sell if they have to. Like, look, man, you know, this is a two-person channel actually here on aMillionortheMoon. My partner and friend Messin has been absent as of late. He's been dealing with the plague. But point is, one of his biggest gripes with Hex and not staking Hex, because he owns Hex but he doesn't stake any. His biggest thing is, you know, what if the SEC comes after Hex in a similar way they did to, in a similar way they did to XRP in the future? Or what if I have a medical emergency, you know, and I need access to my funds, whatever, right? So, but again, with things like Hadron, with things like this opens the door for people getting into Hex, opening a large max length hex stake where they wouldn't have otherwise, given this new liquidity feature. And I mean, just to show your project even harder too, it's not just that, it's also the fact that, again, there's very likely to be arbitrage opportunities early on as the true value and market value is being discovered. There will be discounts, there will be premiums. And if if you're kind of long-term minded, and if you're able to get into those discounts, well, that's a way to for anyone to kind of accumulate an outsized portion of a max length hex stake. So there's tons of opportunity here, man. if people haven't said it yet, I kind of just want to thank you for making something like this, because I think this is bringing a lot of opportunity and a lot of utility to the market, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
we really appreciate that. That means a lot.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting stuff, man. And look, because this, nothing too, man. This ain't sports. A lot of this stuff isn't trivial. We're dealing with people's finances. Finances affect people's lives, and whenever you can create something of utility, of value, that gives people opportunity, that's valuable. That's definitely something worthy to add kind of to the world, man. So super cool that you're doing this. Thanks for coming on, mine, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, what kind of dog do you have, by the
way? Shar-Pei.
A Shar-Pei? Oh, okay, man.
Yeah, you should get one. They're the best.
I've been debating. Yeah, I mean, either debating something kind of like some more chill golden retriever, but then kind of like the idea of like a German Shepherd or something a little bit more active. But
yeah, I think Shar-Peis are good because they like to play, but they also are totally fine just like laying down, and they also ward off evil spirits. They've been known throughout ancient Chinese history to ward off their black tongues, ward off ghosts.
Well, that's a major plus.
Yeah, added benefit there.
Yeah, that's a big benefit. There's definitely a premium on that kind of dog for sure. Yeah, man. Okay, super interesting. So, interesting. So, look, I think those are most of the questions I had written down on my end here. Yeah. Is there anything
Is anyone in the chat asking anything? I just saw the chat.
Let's see. Oh, there's one very important one here. Brazology saying, been messing with the girls and got sick. No, there's that as well. You're getting ready for effing hangout this Friday and beyond. Yeah, do you have any future live streams you want to promote real quick?
So no, I was on effing hangout this past Friday, but I'm like, when this is live, I'll probably be on anyone's live stream that wants to discuss. I'm happy to get on.
Right.
And we'll probably be streaming on my channel. If you search Dipcatcher on YouTube.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, folks, like and subscribe. Also leave a link for all your stuff after once the live stream is over as well. So do we have a question here? Stake hacks with Maximus and receive 1 maxi per hex to represent your share of the pool. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, look, just for fun. I mean, I know there's no kind of real way to calculate this, but is there any rumblings, any kind of consensus as to how much we expect to potentially raise? Or is there no real consensus?
I mean,
there's no way of knowing.
People are gunning for the 150 million, maxing out the bigger pays better bonus. That's like an awesome goal. There's some people in that chat that I'm like, names that I've seen from like the days when Hex was the cheapest ever. Like people hopping in like, oh, I think I'm gonna buy today. Like there are some people in that chat that I'm pretty certain have a ton of Hex. And something that we didn't really touch on was the gas savings and like the access to early liquidity where you can just like break off a little bit of your, like that really benefits like this, like the smaller size people. Right. But what benefits the larger holders of Hex are the liquidity providing opportunities and like other yield producing opportunities where you could provide liquidity to the maxi Hex market, and then over time you're just earning more of both. And compared to other markets that you might be providing liquidity for, just because it's reasonable to expect that it might range around that redemption value, those are the types of coins that are the most profitable to provide liquidity for. And so larger players may be able to benefit from earning, just providing liquidity to this market, and then over time they're earning both maxi and Hex, from the trading fees. But then what that really means, they're just earning more Hex. And so it's like, it provides another opportunity to earn yield while your assets are liquid. So like staking on your own, that's like for those larger players, they don't care about the gas. Like gas benefits the larger players. Like high gas is better for the big guys. Yeah. And so, they don't really care about the gas savings, but and they're but like, so staking on their own, that's like yield on their illiquid assets, and that yield, like that will probably be higher than like the APY you get from providing liquidity. But for those large players, it's like they now have an opportunity to have a yield source during which the asset that's like producing the yield is liquid. And so that provides like kind of another benefit for those larger players. So for that reason is why I think there could be just some, people that aren't chiming in on Telegram telling you how much they have, but like I could see some big players who are already looking for those types of like opportunities and like ways to put their money to work. I could see a lot of those users minting Maxi and then being market makers.
Absolutely. And I mean, one opportunity, one avenue as well, which I think is particularly interesting, would be pairing the ERC20 side to the PRC20 side, because then the risk of impermanent loss is greatly mitigated.
Yeah, and the thicker those pools are, the more that like the ERC20 and the PRC20 can kind of just be interchangeable, and like everything on Pulse can kind of just be an extension of the things happening on Ethereum. And they're not like and then it's just like they're just handled through the market. The market like kind of attaches on, and it, kind of makes them one. And so I think that like this cross-chain trading between the P side and the E side, that's probably the most critical piece of PulseChain. That's the secret sauce, I think. And I think because Maxi's fitting in, it's holding hex, that cross-chain P Maxi to E Maxi pair, that's actually going to tell, like, I think that what will be really cool to watch is how the P Maxi E Maxi trades relative to the E hex P hex, because the E hex P hex pair is the market measuring the relative value of liquid P hex and liquid E hex, whereas the P Maxi E Maxi, that's measuring the relative value of max length staked P hex and max length staked E hex. And so maybe we'll see some, just some like interesting phenomena there, just as the market is assessing, like what's the relative value. Yeah, like of like across the chains, with all the trade-offs you make for being on a new chain, like what is that? How is the market responding to that in regards to the liquid hex versus how is it responding in regards to the max length staked hex? So I think there's going to be valuable information just contained in that trading pair.
Right, absolutely. And I think something that's I'm sure understood, but maybe should be more widely appreciated is the fact that sure, PulseChain will be the biggest airdrop in the world, all this stuff, but the fact that you're able to provide liquidity on the ERC20 side, the PRC20 side, and the fact that your risk of impermanent loss is greatly mitigated, that is a massive value proposition to come and provide liquidity on the PulseChain side. That, I mean, I'm not aware of anything similar happening on any other chains. It's going to be, there's so much demand here, man. It's such early days. I'm so excited.
Yeah, this big. There's something brewing over here for sure.
Yeah, 100% as well. Now, some with the Maximus front end. So presumably there'll be like a user interface where you can go and you can make your Maximus. Are there any plans to continue like developing on the user interface post mint phase? Like, for example, just to kind of show like the value of that the treasury is accruing over time, or is the user interface more of kind of like just for the mint phase and then to redeem afterward?
No. So you're spot on that we definitely want to provide a lot of tools that help people, assess the value of that stake and, your holdings in the stake. And so my bro Gold Key, who he everything I'm working on, like for going back years, anything I'm working on, he's working on with me. He's a really talented designer. And so, he's like all like the awesome, beautiful website and like just the awesome branding behind Maximus, like, that's all him. And so he's been designing these really cool dashboards that we're going to roll out that will help people look at the value of that stake. And so,
okay, that's awesome.
So we've definitely, we've got some good dashboard stuff in the works in addition to the like minting and, because like once the minting happens, it's like, that's done. So we don't even need that anymore. And then the redemption, you can actually redeem during the mint phase. Like you're allowed to, if you get cold feet before the stake starts, you can redeem 1-to-1, no penalty or anything. And so there's redemption during that phase, but then there's no redemption until after the stake ends. So like, there's not like during the stake, there's no minting or redemption. And so instead of that, we're like our site will mainly just show it'll show the like the earnings and projected earnings and do all that.
That's really good, because if you weren't going to do that, I was about to like lobby you after the stream, try and get you to do that, because that's a major value proposition. It helps out marketing, makes influencers, YouTubers such as me. It makes our job a lot easier, kind of explaining the value proposition here, explaining what this is all about, and simply just for the users as well, just to help kind of track the value of things. And I think also makes it easier for the market to have maybe a closer understanding of where the true value with the Maxi token lies. So that's awesome. That's really good news. I'm looking forward to seeing that user interface. Do you guys have your website live?
Yeah. So if you go to maximus.cash, you can see it. Okay. And so right now the dApp, like when you connect your wallet, we had our testnet version, which the stake ended like 2 days ago, and so it's like in the redemption phase. So there's really nothing you like if you're you can see the dApp, but you probably won't be able to connect. But yeah, so there's all the information on how it works, and then yeah, so definitely if you're new to Maximus, just go read the website. You'll get a lot of good information there. And then 100%. Once you do that, just hop in the Telegram chat, and there's a lot of people talking about awesome stuff in there all the time. And then if you click Mint Maxi, that'll take you to the dApp that you'll do the minting through, but it's not going to be live now. But okay. Yeah, so that's kind of what it looks like.
Awesome.
So that's that's how it works.
Awesome. Any team tokens, any team allocation?
No, it's the only Maxi that will exist are the Maxi that are minted with Hex.
Interesting. Okay. Are you yourself participating?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Not gonna say in what amount or what I'm gonna do, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is awesome. Why wouldn't I?
No, of course. Yeah, I'm definitely participating as well. I'm gonna call Messin and be like, "Hey, man, if you're not doing this, and I don't know what you're doing." But yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna force his hand and get him to participate in this thing as well. Man, I'm so excited because more and more doors are opening to basically make it easier for people to participate in Hex. And this is but just another example of the development and progress we're seeing with Hex. Man, it is such early days. I don't know about you, but I frankly am growing to appreciate how Hex has been maybe largely dismissed, because ultimately money goes where it's best treated, and it's just a matter of time before everyone else figures out what's going on over here. So that dismissal just kind of gives us, kind of an early opportunity to, benefit from being early.
Yeah, you're 100% right. The wealth transfer has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And, so we thank the haters.
Oh, 100%. And PulseChain's the Trojan horse, right? Like PulseChain's the thing that, because I think makes it easy for this thing to have exposure to the mass market, and it's just a matter of time before people figure out what's going on here, man. So, man, look, I thank you so much for coming on. Super interesting stuff. Everyone, like and subscribe. Is there anything else we should touch on here before we wrap things up?
No, I mean, that's it. Check out maximus.cash. Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/maximus_DAO. Join the Telegram, t.me/MaximusDAO. Follow me on Twitter at TantoNomini, or just search Dipcatcher. And Brandon, thank you so much. This was an awesome time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm very excited. I'm definitely participating. Hope everyone do their own research and consider as well. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon before new uploads. I'll leave links for everything down in the description below afterwards. And thanks for tuning in, folks. Until next time, take care.
Thanks.